Here's something most people get wrong, but it's a critical component to those creating generational wealth. So, if you go to any certified financial planner, financial advisor, it doesn't really matter. They're all going to kind of tell you the exact same thing. They're going to tell you to go to work your 9 to 5, and then take a portion of the money that you have and put it into some sort of retirement account, like an IRA or 401k. Maybe you'll have a pension. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is still the same. Take your W 2 income and take 5 or 10% or whatever you can afford. Of course, the more the better, and put it into these accounts. And the idea is that over the course of 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you'll have this very nice lump sum of money that you can continue to draw on throughout your time of being retirement. Normally, you can pull about 4% of that money. We won't get into specifics, but just believe me, that's the number. Now, this amount of money that you're going to be taking each month from this big lump sum of money is, in fact, and they'll let you know this, not enough to maintain your current lifestyle. So, usually there's discussions like, what do you think you currently will need in retirement? And for a lot of people, they'll think, well, I'm going to have a mortgage or I'm going to have a car and, what I'm currently doing right now. But that's actually not how it works. Most financial advisors will tell you, but you're probably not going to have a mortgage because you're going to have paid that off over the course of 30 years. And you're probably not going to have a car because, if you're not traveling to or from work, you may not need to switch out your car every 5 years or so. It might last you 10 years or 15 years. And after all, you're old, so do you really need to drive anywhere? The point is that the amount of money that you'll end up saving in an IRA or 401k, for the most part, isn't going to be enough to maintain your current lifestyle. So the idea is now that the kids have sort of, graduated and probably moved out and start families of their own, and the mortgage is paid off and the house is paid off, and you own those assets, that you don't need as much money. And so you can take this money plus a little Social Security, maybe a pension from something else, and you'll live perfectly fine on a reduced amount of income. And again, the idea is because you'll own your mortgage, your car, or some of those major expenses. Well, the wealthy follow really a completely different policy. And in fact, for the most part, people creating generational wealth aren't really actually interested in owning anything. And instead, they're more interested in controlling things. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not talking about people and things like that. What we're talking about is this idea of controlling an asset so that you can use it, but not necessarily having to own the particular asset. And most of us get this. When we moved out to our first apartment, we may have realized that we're paying rent and we can control the apartment, meaning we can come and go as freely as we want, we can live there, but we don't technically own it. And if you lease a vehicle or even we're making payments on it, most of us realize that we don't own the car, the bank does, and until we pay them off, we're not going to get title, and again, we don't actually own it, but we do control it because we can drive it to and from work or wherever we want to go. So the idea there is that, the wealthy kind of just continue this with the idea of never really having to own anything or ever having to pay anything off. And the reason is because some of these major assets, like a mortgage or a car, are at tremendously low interest rates. And that money deployed in other places can earn a much higher return on investment. So, what a wealthy or generational wealth, or people building generational wealth, do is they instead of taking money and putting into an IRA or 401k with the idea of building this big lump sum to eventually live off of it, they take money and they put it into assets. In some cases, that is like real estate or businesses. And the idea is that they're going to get a return on investments. They put some money into a business and they get money out of the business in the form of cash flow. They take that cash flow and then they deploy that into the things that they need to control, like where they need to live or the vehicles they need to drive. But the idea is because you now own the assets and those things will forever kind of print you money, as in real estate or another business, you don't ever really have to worry about paying off the asset because that money is going to be consistent. It's like your 9 to 5 that never stops. It just kind of keeps printing money. So a principle of the rich, if you're hearing me, it's the idea is to not really ever pay off your mortgage or to never really pay off your car and instead to kind of always have a car payment, always have a mortgage, but instead to have enough assets or resources that pay you enough money to take care of those living expenses.